Why did not? There we go. I'm like, where is it? Where's the live button? Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Truth will set you free. Episode 7,142. Just kidding. It's 151. We have a really full show today. We actually have a special guest with us, Brad Green. He's running for the U.S. House of Representatives. You know, one of those people that actually makes legitimate decisions. Well, some of them don't, but I believe as though he does. We're going to learn a little bit about him, but the big news that we're going to talk about, and we're going to include Brad as well. We're going to talk about J6 is apparently not over. I've seen people getting arrested as of late. We've got BLM. Well, we got Enrique Tarrio just got sentenced. We're going to talk about that. While you guys are coming in, put some comments in there. Go ahead and tell me where you're from. Let's see who's watching. Trip the algorithm. I had 63 live viewers yesterday for a live, which would typically translate to 5,000 to 10,000 actual views, and the algorithm wasn't a huge fan and just stopped it after the live, unfortunately. So we're going to talk about Vivek, however you pronounce it, Vivek. I love that Anomaly just kept calling him Vivek, even though I don't think that's right. We're going to talk Vivek. He answered a lot of the hard questions. And then what else do we got? Fauci. I know Casey doesn't want me to talk about it. Fauci. Back in the news because he's on the news. Casey, what's going on in your world?
Not much, man. I really think, you know how the guy's coming out and talking about how he had gay sex with Obama and he did crack cocaine with him? I think you're going to come out and say the same thing about Fauci in a few years.
That him and I did that?
Yeah.
Well, you know, sometimes you just got to get going and you do what you have to do and you make it happen. Okay. So we've got some clips that I cannot wait. I cannot wait to play as he is just bumbling around words talking about masks. We're talking about the new potential need for masks. So I'm going to play a couple of those clips. Anyways, what else? Oh, so guys, I'm going to go ahead and throw up the awake. I'll do it. Don't worry. I got it. WakeNowWokeStore.com. Did you get a chance? Did you hear what I said about my whatchamahoozy, my birthday note?
Oh, I'll have it done in 2 seconds.
All right. So if you guys want to buy something, since it's my birthday week, I know this is going to say awake on the bottom. Don't pay attention to it. It's 20% off if you do. What did I tell you to say?
Anthony's, hang on. It was right here. Anthony is 41.
Anthony is 41. I'll be 41 years old on September 7th. I think that's Thursday. Anyways, here's the new cups. As much as we're not like the ultra MAGA group, I thought it'd be clever to make a mug shot. So we've got that in t-shirts as well as in, mugs as well. And my favorite shirt around this time of year is what I'm wearing right now. Live each day like 9/12/01, when we actually gave a crap about each other and our country. That's pretty much the gist of it. Without further ado, Casey, you ready to start the show? Kicking the tires, lighting the fires? All right.
Absolutely.
Let's do the damn thing. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Episode 151, season number 3 of Truth Will Set You Free. We got a special guest, Brad Green, in the hizzy U.S. House of Representatives, running for that. We're going to talk about his campaign and being kind of a libertarian in this weird world of politics. J6, people still getting arrested. I want to answer one of those questions right up here, as right when we get started. Before we do the introduction, where did it go? So many people, yes, still being arrested, and it was for a misdemeanor. He was raided. House was raided. Anyways, you got that. We're going to talk about the BLM march from Takaya Young after she tried to drive over a policeman, and unfortunately, she is dead. Play stupid games. Stupid. Yeah, you get it. All right, we're going to talk about Vivek at one point, but let's go ahead. Without further ado, introduce our special guest, ladies and gentlemen. Here's his picture if you haven't seen it. So you're going to be expecting an even better beard than Casey's beard. Ladies and gentlemen, Brad Green. What's up, buddy?
Hey, so much better beard. Hey, I love the shirt, by the way, and the mugshot mug, super clever. I think I don't have one of those, but the question is, when it gets hot, does it actually reveal the mugshot, or is it just revealed all the time?
I like that you think that we have that kind of budget. I do know what kind of mugs you're talking about. Those mugs are really cool, where literally if the mug is hot, it reveals a picture. They have those, I think, typically in black. They're super cool. No, what this should reveal, it should do, like, as it gets hot, it should reveal the fact that, like, there's nothing to the indictments. Maybe just do that. Just make it disappear.
There's always budget. There's an unlimited budget for things that work.
We're not
Only
we're not
those things.
Democrats. There's no unlimited budget.
Correction.
Yeah, well, I mean,
we're
I'm a
not
businessman.
government.
As long as something works, there's an unlimited budget for it. If you can sell a bunch of mugs and make a profit on each one of them, whatever it takes to make it sell, you should do it. I'd buy a mug, especially if it could reveal something cool.
Valid. Casey was about to say something. Go ahead.
No, you said Democrats, but the U.S. government in general spends
True.
no matter what. It doesn't matter what party you're in.
True.
He's
Yeah,
not wrong.
every party sucks, right? I don't know if you saw this, but CNN is now, and we glossed over Brad's intro, which we'll do in a second. CNN has had Sanjay Gupta up there today saying that Mitch McConnell did not have a stroke or any serious event on stage. So they don't just protect Democrats, they protect the establishment Republicans as well. I got news for you. Son bitch had a stroke. Anyways, Brad, tell us about yourself.
Well, so while we're talking about old people and having senile moments, while I do have gray in my beard, and you're 41, I'm just 43, so I expect to have a little bit of time before I absolutely freeze up in front of a camera, but I think it happens. His face didn't droop. Like, isn't that normally a part of a stroke?
It can be, but when there's a major brain trauma, it said a couple different things. It said it was not a massive, let's see, hold on, I've got the screenshot. No seizure or stroke. They're essentially saying there was no event. They're essentially saying there was no event.
Yeah, nothing to see here. All
Nothing.
right. Well, so I don't know. You keep coming to me like you want me to introduce myself, and
Go
I'm
ahead.
happy to do that. So I'm Brad Green. I'm running for U.S. House of Representatives in Utah's 2nd District. I'm a businessman. I run plumberstock.com, which is a division of my brick and mortar store that in Utah is known as Southwest Plumbing Supply. I'm a family man. I'm a libertarian. I want to go back to D.C. and I want to end the income tax. I want to get the federal government out of the lands inside the states. And I want to use the power of the purse that Congress has from the Constitution to rein in the executive agencies and reestablish equal branches of the government, co-equal branches, so that we have checks and balances between the legislative, the executive, and the judicial, because we haven't done that in a long time. And I think that all of those things are possible if somebody will actually try to get them. Instead, we run a whole bunch of kind of virtue signaling bills that don't really achieve anything, and we argue about whether or not we can give 1 acre to people that their great ancestors were put in prison camps or something during World War II. And I think we should actually get something done, do the work of the people, and we should fight for the freedom. And that's what the House of Representatives is supposed to do. They're supposed to be representing the freedom of their constituents, and I'll do that.
Well, I feel like no better person to run for office that actually has to end up in DC that has had a plumbing background, because you know how to flush shit. So it's perfect. I think and if you want to use that as a slogan for your campaign, I think you might have trouble in Utah. They're a little too on the biblical side, but that would be a reason for me to vote for you personally.
I think we have a tongue-in-cheek motto of our company that is service the crap out of our customers.
Oh, that's good.
And I don't know how that can play to the campaign, but that's clever. I think we could use the Utah version of the word shit and actually make some clever campaigns.
What's the Utah
slogans.
version of the word? Is it poop?
Crap, poop,
Crap. Okay.
bowel movement. I mean, whatever. BM.
He called the shit poo. All right. So real quick, yes, they said it was regarding his brain injury, but the thing is, like, that still means that there's an event. So you have to explain the event. You just don't be like, oh, that's because he was brain injured. No, there's an actual something. There has to be some kind of blip on the EKG. All right. So as a libertarian, have you always voted libertarian, or what's your libertarian stance?
Well, no. So I was in Republican leadership for a long time. Actually, until 2021, I was on the executive committee of the state Republican Party. What you're going to see in the next week or two is a whole bunch of what I would consider mainstream Republicans nationwide coming out to support me. I actually think that's going to happen this week as a result of kind of a week filled with candidates on their side. But I spent a long time in Republican leadership. I did fundraisers for the Republican Party. I was the audit committee chairman of the state Republican Party. And I just saw this massive dysfunction. And a lot of that has been caused by legislative meddling in the elections and in the system of the Republican Party. And another part of that has been just a lack of education in how civics and politics work. And I saw the Republican Party didn't have the capability of protecting their brand. They didn't have the ability really to fight for their platform, the things that they believe in. And so I wanted to create competition from kind of the more liberty-minded side of the political spectrum instead of the more authoritarian side. Right now, what they have is they have really good authoritarian competition in the Democrat Party. And then you have the Republican Party, and they kind of lean towards the Democrat Party to pick up voters. And I want them to lean back to their roots. And Ronald Reagan, in a speech I was listening to, said, the heart and soul of the Republican Party is libertarianism. And I thought, well, I've been called a libertarian forever in the Republican Party. I mean, the first major fundraiser I held, I flew Ron Paul into Cedar City, Utah, and had a huge fundraiser with him as the keynote speaker. And they were like, oh, you're just a libertarian. But none of the establishment said they were going to come until Mitt Romney announced he was coming to it. And then all of the establishment decided they needed to be there too. And
did you let Mitt Romney in the door?
I did. I charged him $3,000 for a table. But yeah, I let him in the door.
It's great. So, I think as Casey's a libertarian, I think I've become more and more of a libertarian, but there's not a strong national, I still don't believe there's a strong national presence. You got endorsed by Ron Paul as well, correct?
I did. Yeah. Thursday or Friday last week, I finally was able to secure his endorsement. And it's kind of a big deal to people that care about Ron Paul, people that are anti-war, people that are pro-fiscal responsibility. That endorsement's a big deal. To the establishment folks, they don't care. They're like, whatever, he was a libertarian Republican. Like, we don't care about him. And so it does make a difference. And I think in Utah, especially in this district, there are a lot of people that really resonate with Ron Paul's message, and I'm one of them.
Me 100%. My mom actually was one of his what do they call it? Like the delegates where they have to go into the conventions. Apparently in the, what year did he run? Was it 2012?
And 2008, both, I think.
And 2008.
Yeah, 2008 and 12.
I think it was 12. She was one of the, like, she had to be like a silent delegate because the Republican Party was not allowing Ron Paul to have any voice whatsoever. So they had to go in as a plant and then switch their vote when they were there. It was super. It's amazing that in this digital world, even we lived in then, that there was like, all right, we show up, we have our little pocket, we have our side meeting. And that was like the Ron Paul faithful. And the other thing I heard about Ron Paul is part of what they believe happened to his campaign, because he did have a lot of popularity. He was populist in many ways. Is his voice, when you watched on TV, was annoying. It was pitchy. It didn't sound right. And it turns out, if you see him speak in person, it was quite different than that. Apparently, his voice did not match the TV. It was almost like the mainstream media that now then we would think as a conspiracy, the mainstream media might have been altering his voice or his microphone or something along that line. I don't know.
Maybe. I think it changes from time to time. I mean, he is an old guy and he's a doctor. And so speaking hasn't been maybe his big thing. I also think he hasn't sometimes used the highest quality recording equipment. But I've known him in person. I've been to seminars, conventions, and fundraisers, of course, that he's done. And his voice sometimes carries extremely well and sounds really healthy, and sometimes not so much. So I'm gonna give maybe a good faith basis to the media that maybe was manipulating his microphone, but maybe he just didn't have a very good one.
Maybe it's probably. I mean, that's one of those ones that I
didn't give him fair treatment in 2008 or 2012.
No,
I actually saw a picture somebody took where it said, here's who qualified for the debate, and it had them listed all the way down to like number 8 and 9 of the debate contenders, and then it said number 10, and it said somebody else, and it had a grayed out like placeholder picture, like they weren't, and he was like 1% below the next guy, and they're like, we're not even going to list his name, he's excluded.
They were told not to.
Like, that's just bullshit.
Real quick, guys.
That's bull poop.
Bill, you can say bullshit. You could say whatever you want on here. Is it true that DeSantis stepped down? He, of course, this is why it's called Truth Will Set You Free. Let's really quick get to it. Florida governor was due to be in South Carolina on Monday as part of his White House campaign, but returned to Florida over the weekend to give a press conference about Tropical Storm Idalia. He temporarily paused his 2024 presidential campaign because of the massive storm and tropical storm and hurricane in Florida. He is vehemently denied the suggestions that he's dropping out of the race. So that's
hardly
your
a pause of the campaign. Imagine what would happen to his campaign if he said, "Hey, look, I'm campaigning. I'm not coming back to my state when we're having major problems." Like, it's a campaign appearance. Sorry.
The ultra Trump groups like, I told you, to sanctimonious, he's done.
You know why that's done, right?
Why?
Trump truthed it and then deleted it.
Jesus.
Trump truthed it and said he's stepping down and then deleted it later.
The irony being called Trump or truth, whatever. So since we're on the libertarian, first off, do you have any questions for him, Casey? And then I'm going to get into Vivek.
No, we're good. Let's go jump in.
Yeah, he's not the best color man in the business for nothing. All right. So anybody get that reference? Vivek had an interview. It's the heck is the name of the movie? The baseball movie, Major League. When he goes, he's not the best man in the okay, because he didn't say anything. Got it. All right.
I got you.
Moving on. All right. Picking up what I'm putting down.
Casey was really excited to talk about Vivek. He wanted to give you a hard time because you've been calling him Vivek all 20 minutes we've been talking.
I literally am waiting for that.
Vivek. It looks like Vivek. I said it last week, Brad. I said it last week.
Carlson and him spent like 5 minutes talking about it. And Tucker was like, "I'm so embarrassed. I called you Vivek."
Yeah.
For like a whole week's worth of radio shows, and it was completely wrong. Why didn't you correct me? And Vivek is like, "I don't give a crap how you pronounce my name. I want to talk about my issues."
And honestly, I said last week, I think he'd be doing better in polls with Vivek. Vivek. I think it plays better. Vivek is more difficult to say. Anyways, so did you have a chance, Casey? You watched the Anomaly interview. You also watched the Andy Frisella interview. Right now, I think Vivek is knocking it out of the ballpark. What do I say? Like, I could make it Ramaswamy. Is that an easier thing to say? Because I keep slipping over on the Vivek. So first off, what do you think, Brad, right now of how Vivek is running his campaign?
I'm okay if you just call him Billy and we just use a nickname. I think Billy is doing a great job in his campaign. And realistically, he's articulate, he's well spoken. He doesn't back down from controversial issues. I mean, people will actually be intending to set a trap for him. And he'll be like, "Well, I don't think it's quite that simple. I think that there's differing groups and opinions, but as long as everybody is doing what they want to do and they're not harming anybody, they're not bringing kids into sexual things, like, it's probably okay." Like, whatever it is that Vivek approaches, whatever Billy does, he seems to have a really measured approach. He's very well spoken. He knows the issues. And of course, I'm a little biased because a lot of his positions are more libertarian than I've seen on a presidential stage.
He believes in a flat tax.
Since Ron Paul.
Yeah, he's a flat tax Republican. He wants 12% across the board. When I heard him say that on Andy Frisella, I was like, wow. Casey, go ahead.
Well, so does Ben Carson.
Did he?
Ben Carson ran on 10-10-10. Yeah, he was pushing.
He was also asleep his whole campaign, so it's hard to say that.
But no, Vivek killed it. I think he walked into a show that he knew was going to be controversial and calling him out on every little thing. And honestly, I think Anomaly really went the wrong direction. Anomaly could have gone with a little bit more of a welcoming approach, trying to get the information out there, but he went in with just attacking. So that will probably be the last chance that he will ever have a Vivek.
So I felt.
Speaking of attacking, can I plug in there on the debate? He stood out in one really huge way, in my opinion, on the Republican debate. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
No, go ahead.
War in Ukraine. He was like, "No, I don't think we need to go to war in Ukraine. I don't think we need to keep funding the war in Ukraine." Everybody else was like, "Yeah, absolutely. Let's send in more military equipment. Let's send boots on the ground. Let's turn Russia to glass. Like, let's do all of these horrible militaristic things." And he was like, "Yeah, I think I won't."
Yeah, and I mean, we still have a president right now that is talking about still including Ukraine and NATO, which breaks every rule that we set 30 years ago. We go back on our promises. And honestly, I would say that with the Republicans. I think the Republicans in office lie. I don't think they necessarily go back on their promises much. The Democrats, they renege on every major policy thing that we do, which means for the next 50 years, what country is really going to want to trust us? Nobody, unless we pay them, which we see where that's going right now.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
So Vivek. So I brought this one up. The fact is the Anomaly show today, I at first was mad at Anomaly. I didn't like his tone. I thought he came off as unlikable. I thought he came off as annoying. Did you watch it, Brad?
I didn't. I haven't seen it yet.
Get a chance. It's only about 40 minutes. Because if there was ever, because the people that are like Rosemary, love you to death, that are still under the Trump haze of everything that comes out of the Trump camp and Trump, it's all true. It's not. So, and honestly, Anomaly is anti-Trump as well. So it's more of a, and I'm not anti-Trump, didn't mean that, just saying that there's better options in my honest opinion. Each week that changes, by the way. Because I think I keep seeing the better in Trump, and then every so often I see the crap. But Vivek did not take money from Soros. He took money from George Soros's brother, which now he's addressed at length multiple occasions. And he explained the scholarship. There was a $50,000 scholarship. He explained that he made money at the end of that year. And it was also a merit-based scholarship from George Soros's brother when he was 24 years old. And somebody, and you're saying, not Trump. Trump took $120 million. Well, there was an investment group that Soros, actually George, not the brother Paul, that George Soros was a part of, that gave $120 million for a building. I'm not going to fault him on it. It was in 2004. I don't really care. This is a long time ago. That's the way business is done. But if you're going to play the game, you have to play the game both ways. Vivek took $50,000 when he was an up-and-coming whatever entrepreneur. He took it in summer to fall of whatever year it was, 2010. And then in 2010 fall or winter in December is when he got his first big check, which was $1 million, and he made $2.9 million. Next year, he answered all questions, and he said that all of that is disclosed, to which Anomaly did a great job. I actually really liked it. Anomaly was a dick. He was an absolute dick. We need more journalists that are willing to ask the hard questions. Problem is, only Vivek is the only presidential candidate in history that was willing to take those questions. So he answered, and he said, look, I probably made $1 million combined in those 3 years leading up to it. The difference is it's still $50,000. And if you're making that kind of money, how would I not want to take a $50,000 scholarship? I'd have to be an absolute moron not to take it. And that's a fact. So I really think he did a great job answering all of the questions that Anomaly brought up that made me question Vivek, and all the way up to some of it. He had a great, last thing I'll say in this little diatribe. He talked about the fact that his investment fund had funding from BlackRock and Vanguard, which is a big deal. That would make me raise an eyebrow. But if you use common sense, which he answered it with, he goes, it's a publicly traded company. I've got no control who buys large shares of my company, as does any publicly traded company. And the problem is Vanguard, BlackRock, and the other one that I always forget the name of, check something, they all just buy up businesses that have any potential. They buy up a bunch. He's like, I can't control that. I wish I could, but I can't. So he had an answer for everything. And the comments were 80% positive, and the rest were like, oh, he's spinning around the question. No, he answered everything that came up. Casey, what do you think?
No, he did. I think he did well. I loved Vivek. Vivek wanted to address all of the things. The part that I didn't like about what Vivek was, what Anomaly was doing, is the little jabs to Vivek and be saying, "You only gave me 45 minutes. I'm only 45."
That was annoying to me too. That was a whole victim
dude
crap.
He inserted you in his campaign. He's busy running for president of the United States.
Yeah.
Be thankful you got the 45 minutes. But overall, the whole thing, like, everybody was probably up in arms and was ready to delete me on social media yesterday, because I was so sick of people saying Vivek is a George Soros plant. And I'm like, you are so ignorant. Like, if you wanted to say that, let's go back into the books and let's look it all up. Oh, look, Trump did business with them. And yeah, Ann Dodson just mentioned it. And I didn't even know who Soros was prior to 2015. Well, some of us that were still dabbling, for example, back then, I was paying a lot of attention to Alex Jones. George Soros was all over Alex Jones' mouth and coming out of it back then. So a lot of us that were engaged in that period of time into this corruption in our government knew who George Soros was.
I don't know when I knew. I don't think I really knew until probably right around 2015, 2016. But looking back, I knew there was something nefarious going on in 2012, right after Michael Brown. Right after that all started, I'm like, there's somebody funding these ridiculous riots and BLM stuff, and turns out the man behind the curtain was George Soros and the people that he knew. So, what's your overall thoughts, Brad? Do you think that Vivek has an actual chance?
Well, so two things. Number one, on the question of Vivek taking money from Soros, George Soros's brother, by the way, like the fact that he owns a public company, like people are going to buy and sell stock all the time. I remember I was looking at sales on plumberstock.com one day, and I saw somebody had placed an order for $12,000 worth of bathroom faucets, and as I looked at it, they were gold-colored Kohler bathroom faucets, and I'm like, who needs 60 of those or whatever it was? And as I dug into it, it was this, I don't even remember the name of it. It was one of those big unions back in like Michigan. And apparently they were delivered to the union headquarters, which I looked it up on Google Maps. It's this huge building. And I'm like, they're going to put gold plated. Now it's probably not real gold, but they make it look like gold. It's really expensive to build those faucets. They're going to put $1,000 faucets for bathroom sinks in this commercial building, and they're taking, membership dues from people that can't hardly afford to pay rent. Like, again, like I had no control over that. Like my job was to fill their order, like figure out how to source the product, figure out how to get it to them, make sure the paperwork followed and that they were happy with the order. Like that stuff happens. Like the bigger your company, the harder it is to make sure you know exactly who you're doing business with. In fact, if you look back, you really want to talk about who took money from Soros. I guarantee if you look back far enough, you'll be able to find that George Soros stayed in a Trump resort property. I guarantee that's happened.
Guarantee
and so Trump took money from Soros, probably. I mean, you just have to be able to trace that back. But the question is, who cares? Like that stuff happens. Did he provide valuable service for it? Now, if he took a donation and there were strings attached, that's a problem. He's a puppet, and we don't want puppets in office. And so in both circumstances, it matters who you took money from. And so what do I think about Vivek? Was that the question that I'm avoiding?
Yeah, what do you think Vivek actually has? I mean, he brought up.
I think he has a chance. I do. So realistically, I voted for Trump twice. I kind of like Trump. I mean, as a libertarian, there's things I don't like about Trump.
Yeah.
As a Christian, there's things I don't like about Trump. Although I'm on record having repeatedly said I think he is the best president in my lifetime so far, and that's crazy time to a lot of people. But I just saw a lot of the really good things that he did as the commander of the executive branch of government, and I have to give him respect and props for that. But as far as does Vivek have a chance, I think he does. I mean, realistically, nobody else on the trail is getting the same kind of articulate message out there. Nobody else is being talked about in the media. I mean, Trump is being talked about, but it's really kind of offhandish. It's like he is the past. People talk about Vivek as if he's the future. And I think it could go either way. I mean, realistically, if it was Trump versus Vivek, I don't know who I would vote for at this point. But there seems to be, I mean, I listened to an interview, I think it was Glenn Beck had with Donald Trump last week. And he said, well, what do you think about Vivek for vice president? And Trump was like, hey, he said he likes me. Like, I would consider somebody that likes me and is willing to publicly admit that as vice president. Like, sure, why not? And I see that being a possibility as well. But my guess is in the primary, Vivek outperforms everybody except maybe Trump.
Yeah, I'm going to agree.
And that puts him in the game.
Yeah, Casey and I have both agreed that DeSantis has run a terrible campaign. I know that I believe that Anomaly is on the same as Bobby Sauce. I actually have no idea, to be honest, who Anomaly is voting for. I'd assume that he, or not voting for, but supporting right now. So I'm assuming it's DeSantis. And I mean, if you start doing the Soros size, Soros has praised DeSantis. He's not going to vote for him, but he's praised him. So it's like, you don't know what kind of weird manipulation game they're playing with that. And ultimately, I think DeSantis has become too politician. He's a great governor in Florida. And right now, I'm upset because I was DeSanta Claus all the way. I was a huge DeSantis fan. And now it's like, I think he's run a crap campaign. When I see him on the stage, he looks like every other politician. Vivek Rameswamy, gosh, blessed. He looks like Billy.
Keep it simple.
Billy. We should just call him, instead of the big guy, we'll call him the slim guy. So the slim guy. He's done so incredibly well. And every time I start having doubts, he has the balls to announce those, to go against those claims and announce his positions. And I don't know of a politician on that scale, on that level in history that is taking questions like that. And he's not going roundabout the answers. He's taking his time answering it thoroughly. And he went over his time today with Anomaly. I hope Anomaly sees. I mean, I trust Andy Frisella's gut when he said he feels like he's real. I think everybody that I know that has met Andy Frisella is a legit guy and human being and judge of character. And yeah, Vivek is so polished, but we can't fault him for being polished if he's truly saying it over and over and also taking responsibility for bad decisions he made in the past. He did that all day today. He's like, there's things that I think all of us cringe at when we're talking about masks or vaccines or whatever. He's like, I cringe looking at it. He's like, I was in pharmaceuticals, like that with biotech. That was my world. And, I said some stuff that I don't agree with now. And he stood strong in his stance on Trump's failure, or on what he believes is a failure on January 6th, the way that he handled it. He stood true to the fact that he's like, the election had issues. Honestly, Casey, did you notice he answered that question exactly how I answer it every time we talk about it?
I didn't correlate it, but now I am. At the time of watching it, but no, it makes sense. Yeah, you did.
Yeah, he asked the exact question. He goes, so do you believe this now? He goes, well, the one thing I do know is that there was information suppression by big tech. I say that all the time. The one thing that would have completely changed the election, and this is based on polling, is the Hunter Biden laptop story that was deemed false was enough alone. Take away any issues that you can't prove with the Dominion or any of these. Take all that away. There was enough, especially in the three main states. And he said all but the three main states, the three swing states. He said all this in his thing. He goes, that was enough to completely affect the election. Now, when it comes to ballot harvesting and all that, I didn't believe it then. I didn't know it then. I thought that was poorly explained. But he goes, now looking at it and seeing some of the evidence, there's some issues. Don't know if it was enough to overturn the election. It was like hearing myself talk, which therefore maybe makes me like him even more. He's like a smarter, darker, richer, a lot of better things version of me, and I appreciate that.
I agree. He's a much better version of you. There you go.
Brad,
you get better, and then you can run for president. Who
are you running against, Brad?
So right now there's a field of contenders. The Republican primary is today in Utah, and by, I don't know, maybe in 4 or 5 hours, we should start seeing the results. There is a Democrat, Kathleen Reeve, that's running, and she's expected to get 25% of the vote. And the 3 Republican contenders are Bruce Huff, Celeste Malloy, and Becky Edwards. And then there's me, and then there's a field of other independents and other third parties, some of whom have pledged to back my campaign if the right endorsements come in this week, which I think they will. So realistically,
despite you talking shit, Brad, I would still vote for you, just so you know.
Thank you. Well, in fact, realistically, because I talk shit, that's why you're voting for me. You want somebody that's real, and that's me for sure. So what I expect to happen is the polls that have carried throughout this campaign have tightened up, but still Becky Edwards has remained in the lead. She's the one that has the best name recognition. She's kind of got that folksy grandma thing going on. Unless you actually know her politics and actually disagree with her, then it's really hard to divine whether or not that's a good candidate. And a lot of Utahns, I think, really aren't prepared to make those kinds of decisions because the education system has failed us. And this kind of happened really fast. It happened all of a sudden. I mean, it was April or May before people even knew Chris Stewart was resigning. And then it was May when the Republicans tried their hand at a convention to pick a good candidate. They didn't have clear consensus, but the state law said they had to send only 1 instead of 2, as their convention rules call for. And then they let as many people as could get signatures on the ballot to compete. And so it's all happened really fast, and people haven't had a whole lot of time to do their due diligence. And so the selection that the Republican parties are getting this time doesn't have the full vetting that you normally end up with. But what's more than that is they have to run against me in November. And most people in Utah, if they know of me, they know of me from 2 years ago from my efforts in the Republican Party, or they know of me from my business dealings throughout the state. And they're going to be shocked, and they're like, "Oh, I like that guy," or "I don't like that guy," and he's in the general election. Like, I have a chance to vote for that guy, or his name is a color, and I like people with colors in their name, because a lot of people, that's as deep as their political vote goes. You know, like your sister-in-law or your neighbor, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that I see, Brad, is with this whole thing, I am so against. I've been very vocal. Most of the followers here will recognize when I talk about Celeste Malloy, because I've been blasting the Republican Party ever since that was done. I think they epically failed every constituent of the Republican Party by putting her up and saying that you guys need to do better. I'm registered unaffiliated, so I can't do anything. I just have to sit there and try to tell people and open their eyes that
You can
Celeste
still
Malloy
register
does
today,
not
you know. There's Democrats doing it.
What was that?
You can still register today and vote as a Republican. There's Democrats out there doing it.
I know. I just don't like to play those games, and I really don't want to be associated with either party. I really don't. I think they're both bad. They're really bad. And so my whole life, I grew up, my family's telling me Republican is the way it is, but as soon as I got exposed to Ron Paul when I turned 18, I was like, no.
Whoa,
red and
wait.
blue are evil.
Ron Paul exposed himself to you?
Yeah.
Wait,
yes.
did you say Ron Paul exposed himself to you?
Oh,
That's very awkward.
Really?
You were exposed to.
We're not talking about Joe Biden and Ashley, okay?
Hold on, you're gonna have to qualify this though. So you said you were exposed to Ron Paul in 2008, and you said no, like you didn't like his message, or you did like his message?
No, I did. I was all in on Ron Paul ever since.
Realize he's a Republican, right? Not that I'm saying you should join the Republican Party. I'm saying that there are saving graces in these other parties, and Ron Paul was definitely something positive for the GOP.
But he only did that to get his name out there, and then when they kicked him off the Republican ticket, he switched to Libertarian or some sort of third party. He's
definitely a Libertarian. He's the. I mean,
yeah. I think he's still registered Republican, but he's been a lifelong member of the Libertarian Party. They don't actually make you register on the government's records to be considered a libertarian. Like they are like, look, if you're going to associate with us and you're going to pledge not to use politics to beat up on your opponent ideologically, like if you won't use force or fraud or deception, you're welcome to be a libertarian, register for whatever party you want. Like that's the libertarian way. And so, and Ron Paul in the 70s, I believe, paid lifetime membership, which in the Libertarian Party, one ounce gold coin is lifetime dues for the Libertarian Party. And so he's been a lifetime libertarian, even though he was a Republican in Congress for like, I don't even remember, 7 terms? Long time.
What people go ahead and put in the comments, Maureen, why does it, and you're allowed to have your gut feeling, but
sure.
Why is it? Is it because you've seen so many things in the media about him, or like what is, you know, if the reason is what my confusion and my skepticism is based on the fact that he almost seems too good, that's fair. But anything else besides that, there's nothing factually out there that he hasn't rebutted or debunked. So just let me know what it really is that makes you feel that way. I don't even know who's got shit in his mouth. I'm assuming that's just Joe Biden. Oh, I was going to bring that clip up. Did anybody see this today? Casey, you might have a job. Joe Biden was so confused at the end of a special Medal of Honor ceremony that he walked off.
I saw that.
Because the key, he walked off before the final prayer. The key is the 100 or so year old Medal of Honor recipient that knew that Joe Biden was being a dipshit. His face at the very end went, well, that's weird. While Casey's bringing it up, things I forgot to mention at the beginning of the show. I'm drinking the delicious. Oh yeah. Go ahead and rewind it just a hair. So, the water I'm drinking is from one of our sponsors. It is sponsors / affiliates is all I drink. You guys have heard me talk about it. It's Century H2O. It's a $330 filter. You get it from underneath your sink. So everything's out of my tap right now. And, I drink a gallon of water a day for the last 2 months. And there's a lot of science and information behind it. Check it out on their website, but you get 10% off by using Russo 10. And you only have to change the filter once every year. So essentially it's like a Brita, but also way Brita costs, but way better. And it'll last for more than a year. And honestly, the actual filters are about 14 to 16, 18 months. But I would strongly suggest it. And because the crap you're getting from plastic bottles and the crap you're even getting from Brita isn't good enough, that adds magnesium, alkaline, and also oxygen, along with a bunch of other stuff. So there's that. The Dr. Artist Show. Use BFD at checkout for 10% off. The clothing. I'm wearing the shirt. Casey's wearing the Be the Change. And we got a whole new website. I forgot about that. Casey crushed it. Make sure you check that out. Go to the store. use revenge for 20% off, or Anthony is 41. All right. And then, of course, patreon.com/be the change USA. All right, let's go. Okay, go ahead and play this.
I want to touch on this, though. I think that's factual, Renee.
The
I
cow's
actually
gone.
do.
The cow's gone, by the way. The Medal of Honor recipient that's ancient stays up there. Joe Biden is looking around. People are wondering where he is going. Watch when they zoom in on the guy's face. Medal of Honor guy. It's like, why am I up here alone? Look at there it is right there. Play, just do like 3 seconds back. Go back real quick. Watch him go.
Take a screenshot. That's a meme right there.
One more. You're a little not far enough. Right when he realized, he's like, I'm up here alone because my current sitting president is a dipshit. That's actually, this is what the screen loading is exactly his brain. That's Joe Biden's brain. That's how it works. All right, I jinxed it. There it is. You cannot make that up. So anyways, Joe Biden, and then they start the prayer right here.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me for the benediction.
Do you see how
Most
old
holy
that
God,
guy is?
We thank you.
Like, that guy is really, really old. And Joe Biden was the president of the United States of America. Looked like a man. Like, Brad, are you crying?
Yeah, it's so funny. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh my God,
Oh,
it's
my
so
gosh.
bad. Like, so bad. Anyways, I forgot I was going to add that in. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that little.
I hadn't seen that yet. That's
Oh, it's
legit.
new. It's only a couple hours old. Let's get in before we go to the Fauci. Also, a favor from you guys. I know that there's a couple of you that follow me on my personal page. The mass sending of stuff. I typically don't say stop it, but if you haven't vetted it to make sure it is 100% fact, please don't send it to me. I never say this, but it's like I get message after message from like 4 or 5 people. And you know what, Billy Bob, you send me stuff all the time. You send me stuff and it's always good. And the occasion that you don't know, you go, is this factually correct? Like, is this true? I'm good with that because then at least if I know that if I have time, I'll look at it and I'll try to vet it. But the people that send me mass stuff, I know that I could just block you and do that, but I don't want to do that because maybe someday you need help. I don't know. Just please vet your shit. That's it.
Russo, you'll learn. I've commented on your posts a few times already on Facebook. One thing you don't tell people on the internet is to not do something.
Well, I'm not talking about the tagging me in a post. Granted, it may have gotten me in trouble with Cowboy Channel. I don't know because right now I really have no idea what's going on, but I'm not working for 6. I don't know if I'm working again. So I don't know what the deal is. I thought I was doing quite well, but apparently I don't know. But I don't know if that's it per se. There might be some other things, but I did notice that because I was busy this weekend, there were some posts left up, Billy Bob, that were very political, and it said like, F this, F that. And I'm like, oh God. Usually Billy Bob is good about tagging me in the comments. This week, I usually take the other stuff down within 12 minutes, but I wasn't on my phone as much, and I don't know if that's what got me in trouble. So anyways, guys, that was a twofold thing. All right, let's see. Let's go into J6. We'll do J6, BLM, and Fauci. We got about 20 minutes to go. All right, J6, real quick. For those of you that don't know, Enrique, and I don't know the other guy's name. It's on Hodge Twins page, but he was arrested for just entering the building. He was held up at gunpoint and his house raided by the FBI, which makes me concerned. I didn't even go in the building. I have had my own FBI agent. Many people know this. It boggles my mind that this is something, and I'm noticing, look where we are. We're about a year away from the election. Let's start attacking what was the biggest trap ever in history. And then let's get into the biggest white supremacist group ever and talk about Enrique Tarrio, who is so far from white, I can't even properly explain it. So he just got 22 years. He was not in Washington, D.C., but as a member of the Proud Boys and as their leader, the quote-unquote far-right organization he commanded that, by the way, gave free security to Cashley Kelly, another black guy, got free security because they care about politics. They're not white supremacists, in the hope of overturning the previous November's presidential election. Oh, sorry, they said far right organization, whatever. But he was central to planning the violent insurrection. I have to butt back on that. When you say violent, what police officer or what member of the political party, who died? Who got severely hurt? The police officers that were, many of which were taken to the hospital, it was because their own gas can went off in their face. Federal prosecutors alleged charging him with seditious conspiracy as part of a broad effort to punish those who stormed the Capitol. Wait. Punish those that stormed the Capitol to a guy that wasn't at the fucking Capitol. So please explain this to me. So a jury agreed, and so did a federal judge led by Timothy Kelly, granted ginormous piece of shit, from Washington, D.C., sentencing Tarrio on Tuesday to 22 years in a federal prison, longest January 6th related sentence. This should be perfect proof and evidence that the fact that the biggest sentence was handed out to a man that wasn't even there on an insurrection they're calling violent, did not have one death to a police officer, except for the police officer that died 2 days later of an unrelated stroke, that they never corrected that story, but it is true. He died of an unrelated stroke, though 11 years less than prosecutors sought. They were trying to get 33 years, ironically the same age as Jesus when he died. The length of the sentence appeared to be a clear message to those responsible for the riot. Will not escape consequences. This is why, and this is where I'm going to take a deep breath. This is why when they came to my house to question me, and again, I have no problem with my FBI agent, any of that whatsoever, but this is why they asked me about Be the Change. That was the first question they asked. Besides the pipe bombers, they said, okay, could Be the Change be deemed a hate group? So technically, if Be the Change, if anybody in Be the Change was part of the initial group of people that broke the fences, whatever, would I be facing, because Cash and I believe strongly that there was something wrong with the election and we needed to hold up the votes, which, by the way, they got what they wanted. They wanted the insurrection. They wanted the riot, whatever it was. So they were forced that. So everybody was forced because everybody was recalling Arizona. I don't know. It's not called recalling, whatever it is. The Arizona and some of the other states, they were already on board with taking the votes back to the state and investigating it. But because of what we did, what the people did, which, again, nobody was doing anything until they started to incite the crowd, they were able to go, now we have to. So their trap worked, and they're using it for political power, and they're ruining people's lives. So again, I have been blamed as the organizer of Be the Change, that even they showed me posters of me saying, hey, Cash and I are going to be here. Meet us at the rally, on the Trump rally, J6, whatever you want to call it. Could I have been in this position? I think so, personally, if things would have gone haywire for anybody that I know.
Oh, absolutely. And the biggest thing is also comes with if you have a big enough following, right? And I think that is where we also believe that Cash, with his presence and some of the interviews he had after, which brought him a lot more attention. And the government is trying to make an example out of these people when they are really like the big coordinators in encouraging it to go as bad as it did. Like, most of the people were still listening to Trump finishing a speech when barricades started to get taken down.
True.
And this is all just an agenda from the government to try to put fear in people. And by the way, when they say Pence didn't have the power, but then they changed the law just last year, like, how did he not have the power, but then you changed the law? Like, how dumb do you have to be? What are your thoughts?
He doesn't
Brad?
have the right to do it, but just to make sure, we're going to change the law so he doesn't have the right to do it. Wait.
We think he doesn't have a right to do it, but maybe this law says that they do. So we're going to make it clear that we don't think that he has the right. So I have 3 points I want to make on this. The first point is the absurdity of 22 years. You think about how many news stories you've seen where a child abuser or a murderer ended up with 1 year, 18 months, community service. Like, seriously, there's been a bunch of horrible things that have happened that have got less than 2 years, and a lot of them are very public. Realistically, what this is meant to do is to send a message that says, look, you can damage property, you can steal things, you can hurt people, you can kill people, just keep it away from the chosen ones. Like those of us in power, we think that we're more important. That's the message that it sends. And the message is received loud and clear. They think they're more important. And the second thing is this. I have seen them try and get huge convictions out of people who were just protesting, that were trying to find a way inside the law to protest against government. For example, last night I released my endorsement of Ammon Bundy, the Nevada rancher. He endorsed my campaign. That guy and a whole bunch of his friends had guns pointed at federal agents multiple times, and they were acquitted. The jury of their peers in a relatively fair trial said, no, we don't think that this deserves conspiracy charges. We don't think that this deserves the kind of charges you're bringing against them. We're going to let them go. Nobody got hurt except for their own people. I mean, Lavoy Finicum was killed. And so realistically, again, it's government can do anything it wants to do. And when you try and stop them, they have to send the message to large extents. I mean, it's cruel and unusual punishment that they're going for, and sometimes they get it. The third thing is this. I know people in the Proud Boys. And first of all, the people that I know are crazy peaceful. They're soft-spoken and they're respectful guys, but they are well-armed. They know their way around firearms. If they actually wanted to take over the government with the numbers they had, they could have picked their favorite gun. Single clip, and they could have done an insurrection effectively with the numbers they had. I mean, it's just bullshit to think that they actually were trying to get an insurrection, because if so, it was the dumbest insurrection by the heaviest armed people in the world that they could have ever imagined.
Yeah, there's no guns found. Casey, go ahead.
Well, no, you're on point, but to finish that's the reason why they're trying to label it as an insurrection, is because of the 14th Amendment, right? And so they can get Trump removed off of the ballot, and they can say he cannot run for president in 2024. And so that is the reason why that term is so important, but yet no one has been charged with it.
Yeah, sedition, and even the sedition is mind-boggling. Like, you look at this, and it's funny. I was almost going to interrupt you before you said it. I'm glad I waited, because that's my follow-up point is, you're comparing these crimes, and the argument will be, yes, but they didn't try to overthrow the government. Nobody you had enough people you had 1 million people there. And honestly, I was one of the first maybe 500,000 people there that went to the building that day. I was near the front. I honest to God did not see any of the violent stuff that we see on the sides of the building, but I was one of the first people there. Nobody let me in on the plan that we were trying to take over the government. And I'm going to tell you, if there was this massive insurrection, seditious plan, we would have been able to do it. I mean, I wouldn't have been a part of it, to be very clear, because I think that's pushing the envelope, but it would have happened. And the thing is that Casey and I have talked about this before. You had the biggest pro 2A group on the planet, and they found one gun? One. I remember I had a pocket knife on me, and I was like, that's a bad idea. And I left the pocket knife someplace. Mike, I'm not getting stuck with this. Like this, the level of gaslighting they've given the American people, specifically the mentally ill and mentally challenged left. And I say that because I shouldn't, because mentally challenged people are in a way better place than the ultra left. But they've been able to mind control them into thinking this is the worst day ever, and it's leading to people's lives being lost. And by lost, I mean 22 years is absolute insanity for a man that wasn't there.
Yep, it's absurd, and it's meant to be so absurd to show that they can get away with it, and that if you stand up against them, they will absolutely ruin your life.
Yeah. And they're banking on that for this next election. They want to make sure people know that if you do something wrong, this is the perfect example. Enrique is the perfect example. Somebody that's incredibly outspoken, has a large following, and he was not even there. They're going to be able to say, you better be careful what you say, because if you incite something that goes wrong, look at this guy, 22 years. And that is absolutely insane. Ronnie, I haven't seen you in a long time. I love that you're here. Cash is doing all right. I talked to him actually a couple days ago. Talked about Kelly a little bit and barrel racing and all that stuff. And him, I think he's got ideas for a bunch of shows. Well, he'll be getting back soon enough. We're only a couple months away on that. And he said, don't worry, Anthony, our financial struggles will be over when I get out, because we're going to be having millions of followers. And I believe Cash, because Cash somehow is like the Pied Piper of followers. I don't know how it works. He's also brilliant, but go ahead, Case.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, I hope it happens. It's just a whole different world of social media since he's been in there. Like, it was very different when he was out here.
I think he'll still be able to figure out how to go. I mean, I can help him go
Twitter's
viral. He's got more
free,
energy.
and you can monetize followers now, but it's a whole different game, and some of it's positive.
Yeah. No, I make a little bit. I make about $400 a month now on views. Like, I mean, there was a couple months I used to make almost 2,000, and then I got squiggity squashed. I'm curious to see how much Facebook's gonna have an issue with the episode I'm gonna show that I just shot today with that doctor talking about. Coming up soon, guys, you're going to hear me with a really, really interesting show talking about one of the most outspoken OBGYNs regarding the V and pregnancies. Anyways, we'll get to that. So really quick, we're going to...
You realized what you just did. The V and the pregnancies. You couldn't say the jab and the pregnancies?
Oh, because it sounds like vagina. I see that. Yeah, I get it.
I caught that too, but kept my mouth shut. Good job, Casey.
A lot of vagina. Have I heard any? This Zuan. I don't know. All right, since Fauci's already up, I'm gonna go ahead and bring it up. Here we go.
No audio.
Really?
Really.
Huh. That's a weird one.
Max.
But I hate him nonetheless. I'm not supposed to hate anybody, but
I wanna fix
seeing
this.
him.
Let me see if I do one thing. Talk amongst yourselves.
It's probably really low, like it was before.
Yeah, I mean, I could hear something. It just wasn't very much.
Oh, it's because the mic. Well, let me. I think I could do one thing. Let me try.
Maybe it was playing out of your speakers and your mic wasn't picking it up.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. That's so dumb. Why does it not play out of there? I got one other option that I want to try before I do that. So keep talking. You guys can do it.
All right. Well, since we're on Fauci and we're starting to lose faith in your technical abilities, I mean, I think that clearly
I like this guy.
The message is clear that the U.S. government, through Anthony Fauci, founded the Wuhan lab, or at least funded the Wuhan lab, and they created COVID, and it slipped out of their control, intentional or not. They intentionally covered it up. They gave us a bullshit story about masks. They created a vaccine that they knew didn't really work. And they mandated lockdowns, masks, and vaccines on everybody as a result. And still, justice has not been served. And the Geneva Convention would hang Fauci in the streets for that, and I support that. I think Nuremberg trials would be appropriate. Now, I don't think they need to be in Nuremberg. They could be anywhere. I'd be happy to host them in Iron County, Utah. I think we could have public officials actually sign on to that, but there should be trials to show that it was willful, to show that it was intentionally deceptive, and to show that millions of people died as a result of his carelessness.
All right, I'm just going to raise the volume really high. And I could not have said it any better myself.
Oh, he's doing the volume through the microphone.
Understood. There is a perception out there by many, how many I don't know, that they don't work. And that the data concludes that they didn't work in the first go-round. Respond to that on masks.
Oh, that's on CNN.
That's not so. I mean, when you're talking about at the population level.
Yeah, that's the crazy part. This was a CNN guy challenging him on masks. I was impressed.
That the data are less strong than knowing that if you look on a situation as an individual protecting themselves or protecting them.
Look at his face.
There's no doubt that masks work. Different studies give different percentages of advantage of wearing it, but there's no doubt that the weight of the studies, and there have been many studies, indicate the benefit of wearing masks. I'm going to...
The benefit of increasing viral load because you're breathing the same viruses in and out. It's almost like he's rooting for the virus.
No, do you realize how long it took him to circle around that answer? So he literally, when he got, and Casey, I didn't even notice the other guy sitting there like staring with his eyes open, like, I can't believe I just asked that question. But Fauci legitimately, we're not. Well, it depends. It depends what you're talking about, because when you look at the actual data that goes into the different idea, when you look at science, there is many different angles. When it comes to the individual,
Tell us you're trying to
literally,
influence the jury pool without telling us you're trying to influence the jury pool. Just saying.
absolutely, he danced around that question so badly, and it's factually incorrect. So then there's, oops, sorry, but wait, there's more. This other one is even better, because the other guy, it's interesting. He tries to help him by saying his initial comment. So hold on a sec. Bum, bum, bum. All right. The other one, even better. Crap. Which one's which? I think it's this guy.
You and your Max, man.
Well, you can shut your dirty mouth. All right. So let's see if this is this the right one? Yes. Okay.
Looks
That
like the
guy's
same.
face.
I heard about it from a number of radio callers. Brett Stevens in the Times talked about Cochrane. Put that on the screen. The most rigorous and comprehensive analysis of scientific studies conducted on the efficacy of masks for reducing the spread of respiratory illness, including COVID-19, was published last month. Its conclusions, said Tom Jefferson, the Oxford epidemiologist who is the lead author, were unambiguous. There is just no evidence that masks, make any difference, he told the journalist Mayan Demasi, full stop. But wait, hold on. What about the N95 masks as opposed to the lower quality surgical or cloth masks? Makes no difference. None of it, he said. Well, what about the studies that initially persuaded policymakers to impose mask mandates? They were convinced by non-randomized studies, flawed observational studies. How do we get beyond that finding of that particular review?
Well, before Fauci answers, let me tell you how you get beyond that. You get beyond it by realizing you don't need to wear masks. So that was the one CNN help. How do we get beyond these issues that show that we shouldn't wear masks? You get beyond it by not wearing masks.
Hey, you gotta give CNN some credit here. They're moving in the right direction. They just haven't learned how to have these conversations yet. They're still learning. They're coming along.
All right, let me finish.
Well, imagine if you're Fauci though, and you're about to be indicted for this, and I'm not sure that he is, but imagine having to defend your bad decisions because otherwise you could likely be killed or imprisoned the rest of your life.
Right. I mean, I feel.
Continue to double down.
Look at the freeze frame of Fauci's face right there. He's soulless. He's like, well, I sold my soul to the devil. I'm the most wealthy ever paid, guy in the American government. I literally have a hand up my fucking back right now. Okay.
Yeah, but there are other studies, Michael, that show at an individual level.
Studies. How do we get beyond that finding of that particular review?
Yeah, but there are other studies, Michael, that show at an individual level for individual. When you're talking about the effect on the epidemic or the pandemic as a whole, the data are less strong. But when you talk about as an individual basis of
The fuck is he talking about?
Themselves or protecting themselves from spreading it to others, there's no doubt that there are many studies that show that there is an advantage. When you took at the broad population level, like the Cochrane study, the data are less firm with regard to the effect on the overall pandemic. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about an individual effect on their own safety. That's a bit different than the broad population.
Okay. So as most people know here, this is my wheelhouse. This is what I've been talking about the most since the day one of the pandemic and all the bullshit. That's actually factually incorrect. There's more studies on the whole that actually show the masking because you can't control the data because you don't know if people are properly wearing their masks or not properly wearing their masks. So they were able to pick and choose different countries and
they're not properly wearing their mask.
Right. Nobody was properly wearing their masks, obviously.
Especially not children in school.
Right. So they were able to manipulate that data. But when he's saying the individual means if you were to actually look at the science and the size of the droplets, you're wrong, Fauci. It literally does not work. It's a tenth of the size. The only thing that it catches is the water droplets, which is a fraction of the actual aerosolization that happens. It's so wrong. And this is the guy that we trusted for science for however long. And it's complete bullshit. Bullshit. Anyway,
it's a cult.
Just remember, trust your government. They have your best interests. Pay your taxes, drink your aspartame, and go back to work.
Exactly. I'm not gonna lie. I've ditched as he pulls up his diet soda. I've actually in the last 2 months ditched almost every foreign like seed oil, canola oil, safflower, any of the bullshit processed foods. Needless to say, I was 204 pounds today. When I got home a month and a half ago, whatever, I was 225. So just drinking a shitload of water, that's 20 pounds, and I feel 8 million times better.
That's a lot of times.
That's a lot of times. 8 million.
Right?
I'm not going to lie. The studies, Brad, that if you look at how good I feel, if I did a better Trump, I would use probably Trump's voice on that one.
As a mathematician, I call bullshit, but I'm glad you feel better.
I feel so many times. Yeah, but the guy that's drinking the diet soda with the electronics, aspartame, whatever the hell, he's gonna die. He's gonna die
Yeah,
very,
I didn't
very
claim
soon.
that I'm feeling good. I'm just claiming that 8 million times is a lot. I'm
I
running for
sounded like
Congress. I
Trump.
haven't slept in 3 months, man. I'm not feeling great, but I'm super thrilled that you're feeling great.
I sounded like Trump. I made a complete example. It's the greatest I've ever felt in it. No, I'm 41.
Everybody
I'm the
knows.
greatest I've ever felt. Trust me. It is one of the best I've ever felt. All right, last topic. We're way over. Let's see. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, body cam. Let's go ahead. BLM riots, to give you the preview. BLM riots. Brad's like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to talk about it.
No, let's talk about it, man. Just realize that when you're gonna show me a video of somebody getting shot, I'm gonna be triggered to tell you about when I got shot, and
Yeah,
so
and
you just prepare yourself.
And that's fine. I mean, that OG gangster side of you, I think, is a big deal in terms of your campaign. I think it'll humanize you, especially in 2023 when all of us are at risk of getting shot because of poorly run cities. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share this. There we go. CBS. Of course, I'm sure they're going to spin it in a different way. We're going to go ahead and play the body cam footage real quick.
Out of the car. Out of the car.
Newly released police body camera footage shows 21-year-old Takia Young, a pregnant woman, repeatedly being told by 2 police officers to get out of her car last week.
To be clear, I don't care if she's pregnant or if they have a pretty little photo of her. She was committing a crime, but we'll continue.
Out of the car.
Young, who is suspected of shoplifting alcohol at a nearby grocery store, refuses to exit her vehicle.
They said your stole stuff, do not leave. Get out of the car. Then get out. No.
Moments later, Young slowly accelerates toward an officer. He then fires once, hitting her in the chest. The officers chase the car as it rolls into a wall and immediately begin medical assistance. Young was later pronounced dead at the hospital. Her baby did not survive. Glendon Township Police Chief John Belford has placed the unidentified officer who fired the shot on administrative leave pending an investigation.
Despite being ordered to get out of the car more than a dozen times, she refused to do so.
I didn't see justification. I saw a young woman get killed.
Attorney Shanda Brown says the Young family watched the video and is demanding an indictment of the officers.
And they're obviously upset and devastated by watching that video.
Nancy Chen, CBS News.
I have an idea. They should demand answers on why their daughter was such a dipshit that she was trying to run over a cop. I'm going to be very clear. Shoplifting is not a crime that you should be ever killed for in any way, shape, or form. But I love the verbiage that they used. The cops were, or she was slowly driving over the cops. Well, the fact that you're going forward at any moment, if you hit the gas pedal, that cop is dead. And you have now not obeyed by the orders over and over again. And if it makes me a racist, that I know that if any of the trolls that pop up here, I don't care if she was black or white, to be very clear, but you put yourself in a position, I don't care. I'm going to say it. I don't care about your life in that moment. I care about the police officer that's telling you to stop in a world where people are committing shoplifting and petty theft over and over. All you have to do, take your arrest, fight it in court, do whatever you want to do. I don't give a shit. You're a criminal. And now we've got marches going up the street for Takia Young by BLM staging these riots because there was an innocent woman that got shot and killed by the police. She wasn't innocent. She was breaking the law. She didn't comply, and then she tried to run over a police officer. I'm sorry. You deserve to die in that moment.
Hey, so she is pretty, by the way, and the eyelash extensions. I mean, she was doing a good job. Just saying. This is no wonder she was pregnant. Some guy liked that. It is super sad, though, that the baby died. I mean, legit. I mean, if we're going to be pro-life, seriously, there's got to be kind of this condolences for that baby, especially. I mean, regardless, even if she was willfully trying to kill that cop, like that baby did nothing wrong. You know what I mean? Like that's super sad. The cop clearly has the right to defend himself. I think that there were a lot of bad decisions all around.
That's true.
And realistically, like I've seen videos of guys in semi trucks like trying to run over protesters. Like sometimes they're doing it slow, sometimes they're doing it fast. I mean, you see people running over people that get in the way of a car all the time. And so I would say that that's a bad decision for that cop. I know when I got shot, there was a guy standing in front of the car shooting through the window at me, and he is not the one that hit me. He hit my dad, the one that right along. And seriously, we ran him over. Like that was just how it happens. And the cop put himself in a dangerous situation, and maybe he thought that it
real
was
quick.
insane.
Real quick, I got to ask you the question, Brad. When you ran over the guy, did you hurt him? What happened to him?
I don't know. We got the hell out of there. What would you do if somebody's shooting at you?
No, I'm asking that because
we never found out.
Okay, because I said this. Well, hold on. Where to go? There was a guy saying that the cop would not have died. The thing is, if you rev up, anything can happen. You can fall, crack your head on the ground. You can die in that moment. Plain and simple.
Sure. What I'm saying is that she was clearly hysterical. She was having a moment where logic wasn't playing in. He put himself in a dangerous situation, which cops do all the time, and they do that to protect us. Like that's their role, and that's why we respect them, because they put themselves in front of shit all the time, and we have to respect them because they're not going to get it right 100% of the time, just like you and I don't. Now he has a little bit better training, and if the training says that you're supposed to put yourself in front of a car when somebody that's hysterical is behind the wheel and it's running, I think that training needs to be altered, because that was not a great place for him to be in that situation. And then realistically, had they been beside the car and out of relative harm's way, you know, they could have got the license plate. They could have chased her down. Now, maybe she could have been running high-speed chase in the community and she died anyway, but at least you have more options. Like having him in front of the car with her inside hysterical, pregnant, hormonal, probably. I have 4 kids. I know what that's like. It's just a bad situation all around. And the baby was the ultimate victim. He didn't do anything wrong and died nonetheless. And the family now has to bear that burden. The cop has to bear that burden the rest of his life, especially now that it's a national issue. He has to bear the burden of being that guy the rest of his life, and that sucks.
Well, Casey, I know, is going to talk about his belief on the policing being an issue, and I agree. Well, let's be clear. The family is going to probably live with $10, $15 million because of that, which I think is more than, I mean, they may end up with nothing, but most of the time in this case, they end up with millions of dollars, and I don't think a penny of it is deserved. I'm sorry, because now you are continuing the just insane martyring of criminals that were breaking the law in the first place. And you're right. I don't think the police officers did all the right things. And there's a chance that if she would have been running off, they might have still shot. And then it would have been more questionable because nobody's life was in danger. It's one of those ones that, yeah, she may have been neurotic at that moment. She may not have been thinking clearly. She's not thinking clearly because of the narrative that we have created, that cops are not law enforcement officers. They're not peace officers. They're not the people that are trying to say, hey, maybe you shouldn't be stealing liquor. And let's not even talk about the fact that she was getting liquor and she's pregnant, all the different issues behind that as well. There's a lot of problems there. Maybe she was getting
cultural divide is a result, though, of politicians using the cops as their Gestapo. Like there's all kinds of stuff that cops are put in harm's way for that really isn't important enough to have a guy with a gun with, $500,000 worth of training with a family at home worried about him every day. Like we can work that shit out in court later. Like we don't have to have a cop there every day handling that stuff. There are instances where somebody's actually hurting somebody, where somebody actually needs to be arrested, and we should be more deliberate about how we do those things. Now, does her family deserve $10 million? I don't know. That's not for me to decide. I mean, I'm not going to armchair quarterback it, but my opinion is the cops, whether it was their training or them personally, they didn't do everything perfectly, and somebody was harmed as a result. And this girl clearly didn't do everything perfectly. In fact, it was clear, in my opinion, that she was in the wrong. Does her family deserve something from her wrong? I don't know. I think a judge and a jury have the opportunity for that. And if our culture were actually working, which it clearly isn't, a judge and a jury could be trusted with that, but it probably wouldn't have got to that point. We have to fix our culture. We're just going to have more of this.
Sorry, Case, hold on. Brad, you said sometimes we don't need cops with guns there. So a shoplifting like this, would this be an occasion where there should have not been cops called?
No, so I'm totally okay with cops being called on that. Realistically, though, forcing her right then and there, if she's going to be belligerent, Like, absolutely, you have to comply right now. We have to take you right now. We're going to go to the point of raising our firearms right now. I think that takes it a step too far. Now, maybe that's the I don't know. Maybe that's the guy in me that's seen both sides of police action. But I think that the cops could have very easily said, "Hey, look, you got to get out of the car." They could have blocked her car with their car. They could have stood beside the car. She could have been belligerent. She would have just wrapped charges. I had a call come in. I had to ignore.
Oh, you're good.
They could have, and again, I'm armchair quarterbacking here, and I don't think that's fair. But they didn't need to force compliance right then and there.
So
I mean,
what would
she's
they?
driving a car. It's registered. They've got her picture. They can either force her stop with their police car in the way, or they can chase her down in the police car, slow chase. They can arrest her when she gets out of the car. Like, there was a lot of ways to de-escalate the situation. I don't know if you've seen what cops do in the UK. Like, they don't have guns. I mean, there are some cops with guns, but the day-to-day cops don't have guns. If they can't handle it with their hands, if they can't de-escalate the situation, then they take care of it later. And if that person's belligerent and violent, then they send in cops with guns later.
Well, they've got a
Not
different.
everything has to be brought to compliance right then and there.
Yeah, but they've got a different culture in the United Kingdom. Our culture is much worse. And when cops it then escalates when you go to a house. I'm actually gonna respectfully disagree with you on that. And I'm watching. The cops were not the guns were not drawn until she started driving at the cop. I think they were doing everything they can. I don't believe, whether it's a male or female, if you've done something to break the law and you're not complying with a basic arrest, technically it should go on the woman to say, you fight it in court. These police officers have to do a job, because otherwise you're being just like the stores in Walgreens and San Francisco and all these places saying, well, let him go. We'll deal with it later. No, if she is suspected of breaking the law, which they're not saying if she actually did it or not, I'm just based on the ignorance of that fact, I'm going to assume she stole liquor from the store. I'm saying you have to do everything you can to stop that woman from leaving, period. Like
I think it's a little intellectually inconsistent. So let's take that to the next extreme and let's say, okay, you trespassed in the Capitol. Like, should the cops have arrested you and brought you into compliance right then and there? Or did they come later and knock on your door and say, hey, look, our studies show that you were in the Capitol. We need to interview you. You have an FBI agent now. Like, we're going to figure this out later. Would it have been more appropriate for them to swarm the place with cops, arrest everybody, round them up, put them in a paddy wagon for trespassing?
If a cop came up
in the Capitol is the same kind of offense of stealing from a store.
If a cop came up to me in front of the Capitol and said, you're under arrest, I would have been angry, but I would have complied with the arrest.
Did they tell her? Sorry, it's a little bit unrelated. Did they tell her she was under arrest, and they just tell her to get out of the car?
Let's see.
Either way, they were trying to bring her to compliance. I mean, it's
just get out of the car. They were telling her to get out of the car because she was accused of.
She had done something wrong.
So follow the rules. If somebody would have told me, like, hey, get off the property or do whatever, just listen to the fucking authority. Like, I think it's very simple at that point that what she was doing.
The same authority that's putting your friend in prison for 22 years. Like, at some point, they have to be held to that higher standard.
I don't think you put it in the same ballpark. Casey, go ahead.
Well, here's where I understand what you're saying, Brad, and I'm a little bit in that court, but the part that I don't like is when cops surround a vehicle, usually they put their vehicle in front of the person driving, so that way that car cannot leave. That is a failure on that officer, and that's what should have been there, not a human body. And because a human body in a vehicle, we know who wins. Like, that's just what happens. The thing that I don't like is this is a culture that we are creating with our police officers, that they don't have to comply, when really your power is in court. You can fix all of this. If you are accused of something that you did not do, the court is where you deal with it, not in the parking lot. And we are dealing with a society that we are being brainwashed that the cops are the bad guys. That is the enemy here, is because we are teaching society cops are bad guys, and they are not. In this scenario, the officers could have done something different, which could have ended up in a different result. I think we talked pre-show. Guns might have still been withdrawn and fired if a car is ramming into a cop car. That still could have happened. But she might not have tried to drive away if a car is there, because she would have known she's stuck.
Right.
And
so I agree with that assessment completely. I think that it's a problem for us to vilify our police officers. Like, I think that's a problem, and it's definitely happening in culture. My argument is that we need to hold our cops to a higher standard, and we should at least be willing to point out what you're now pointing out, what you pointed out before. You're consistent on that. That had the cop car been pulled in front of it, had the training said that that's what he should do, or had he done that, it's very likely that she'd still be alive today, and so would the baby. Now, again, that's coulda, woulda, shoulda, and we got to quit shitting on ourselves. Like, I get that, but what happens is that training creates a problem where a problem maybe shouldn't exist, and it creates an escalating culture where people don't trust cops because they didn't follow the training, and it hurts the rest of the cops because this guy either didn't follow his training or the training didn't exist to put him out of harm's way so that he could actually get the job done.
I mean, I agree with the mistakes being made on the police area, but this one, here's the deal: if I had to choose between let her go or shoot them, that's a loaded question. Now, if a cop wasn't in her way at that moment, I would have said, yeah, at that point, you let her go. You have, like they said, they've got her license plate. If they hadn't put the car in front, if they didn't put the car in front of the, why is that button not working? Can you get that off there? I don't know why all of a sudden my laptop's not working for the buttons case. So anyways,
Anthony needs IT training.
Yeah, I know. No, my little button stopped working. Yeah, it won't work at all right now. Weird. Anyways, so at the end of the day, I'm just saying I would rather, if the cop was where he was and there was shooting and she was driving towards him, yes, I'm fine with her getting shot at that point.
In that moment, it made sense. My argument is that we going forward should do a better job.
Yeah. And he's got another call. I feel like my computer's doing something weird. Anyways, he was already there helping someone who was locked out of their car is what I read. He was not dispatched for that incident specifically. Yeah, it is what it is. That's just, I can't continue to condone criminal behavior and non-compliance. And I do think it's very different than when it comes to January 6th. Again, if I was arrested for what I was doing at January 6th, I would have said, there's no fences around. Everything's been cleared. As far as I've made it, has been completely fine. I've got police officers next to me. And if I did get arrested, take me in. Let's talk about it. I think he's getting calls, so we gotta wrap up the episode. We are 20 minutes over. I think it was a great conversation.
Sorry, guys. That was on me. My bad. Senator Mark Madsen keeps wanting to call me. All
right, well, go talk to him. We're ready to wrap up. What's your final words, Brad?
Hey, my final word is, if you'd like to see some change in Washington, you want to see the status quo eliminated, obliterated, changed, go to bradgreenforutah.com, donate, follow me on social media, help me get elected and be the first libertarian ever elected to Congress so that we can send the message loud and clear that what we're doing right now isn't good enough and we need to be better.
I agree. I think you did a great job articulating all of your positions. I think you're an asshole, which I love assholes. So I would definitely vote for you because you say what's on your mind. No, disobeying cops should not be a death sentence. But when you drive your car at a police officer, sorry, sucks to suck. I don't give a shit.
Yeah,
all right.
Well, F around and find out, right?
F around and find out. Casey, what's your final words?
Final words is, everybody in Utah, go and support Brad, especially in CD2. If you're just in an area you can't vote like me, spread the word, get his name out there. That's the best thing.
I'm gonna need $500,000 to beat Becky Edwards. Help me out.
She is awful.
What's the website again to go to, Brad?
bradgreenforutah.com.
Spelled out like 4, just 4 is in the number.
Either way. I'm a web admin. I build stuff. Everything forwards to Brad Green for Utah.
That's why you and Casey like each other, you nerds. All right.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate your time and your help.
Take it easy, Brad. Have a good rest of your night.
You too.
All right, guys, as a reminder, last thing I'm going to tell you, Brad, if you want to stand back, we'll be done in about 25 seconds. So you're just going to really quick go to, or if you got to go for it. Remember, Century H2O for the water that I'm drinking. It's a filtration system that goes underneath the sink. Russo 10 for 10% off. You can see the Awake Now Woke stuff. I'm wearing the Live Each Day like 9/12. You probably won't get it in time. Probably should have promoted that earlier, but you'll get it like 9/14. No, you might get it by 9/12. Might get it right around. If you order tonight, you'll get it right around. You get yeah, tonight would be the night. Order it at awakenotwokestore.com. Use revenge or Anthony is 41 for 20% off. Keep both those up there. TheDrArtershow.com, BFD at checkout for 10% off. If you want to support the show, here's how to do it. Patreon.com, Be The Change USA, or one-time donations, Be The Change USA on Venmo. Last but not least, Tony, always a great supporter of the show, tony.mymonate.com. What was the last thing? Coming up on the next episode, we will actually have and next episode will probably be Monday of next week if we can do it. I'll be out of town on Tuesday. We actually, for those of you that have been jabbed, I'm going to make an affiliate for a different company that has a spike protein detox. So we'll talk about that later. Without further ado, let's end the show. Kick the tires, light the fires, go enjoy your night, enjoy your dinner, enjoy whatever you got going on, and God bless. Deuces. Squirrel. We didn't use a squirrel once, Casey.
You didn't squirrel tonight.
Oh.